My name is Rebecca. I'm a member of the International Marketing and Recruitment team, and I'm moderating this session. And with me, I have different programs represented by our students. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us today. So I think I will start the session, but I'll just quickly mention to everybody attending that you can ask questions in the Q&A. We have a Q&A feature working on this session today. And what I would like you to do is to ask questions in there. And specifically, it would be great if the questions were related to either the programs or the student experience. There are other webinars where we will talk about application steps and more general application instructions. But in this webinar, we want to take the opportunity to speak to students of the university about their programs and their study experience. So please do ask us questions, and I will direct those questions to the panelists today. And in the meantime, I will ask everybody to introduce themselves. So we can start with Razi-san, who is our student from Digital Architecture. Would you like to introduce yourself, your program, and just anything you would like to share a little bit about yourself?
Yes. So hi, I'm Razi-san, and I'm from Canada. And I'm studying my first year in Digital Architecture and Emergent Features. And I welcome you all.
Thank you.
For those who want to know more about digital architecture.
Thanks very much. And Emma Alaf?
Hi, I am Amalaf. I'm from Ethiopia. Currently, I'm a second year master's in architecture student in Lund University. Yeah.
Thank you. Gizem?
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Gizem. I'm from Turkey, and I have a bachelor's degree in architecture. And currently, I'm studying sustainable urban design. And soon I will start writing my master's thesis. And I'm looking forward to answering your questions.
Oh, a scary time about to start the thesis. And finally, Arti.
Hi, my name is Arti. I'm from Nepal, and I'm currently in my second year of master's. I have a bachelor's in architecture from Nepal. So if anyone is curious about transition from architecture to the field of design, I'm your person.
That's brilliant. Thank you all so much. Okay, so while we're waiting for our participants to add some questions, I'll ask you some other questions that are very common and that come up a lot from our students or prospective students. So we'll start with something really positive and nice. I want to know, what is your favorite thing about studying your subject area at Lund? So I think we go backwards from the direction that we just went, and we'll go with Arti first.
So my favorite thing about studying my subject is the amount of flexibility we get in selecting what projects we do. They know that we are adults and we can make our own decisions, so they don't really smother you. So I like the freedom I have in deciding what project I want to do, and that's very nice.
That's really cool. That's actually something that the staff member from your program mentioned today that was really important for their program, is the freedom. So it's really cool to hear from both the program staff and from you that this is something that you experience as well. Okay, Gizem, what's your favorite thing about studying sustainable urban design at Lund?
Yeah, so as you might know, my program is mostly about working with sustainability. So I really think that Lund is a right place to be working on sustainability, because like part of the program and also outside of the program, there are a lot of different works being done about sustainability, and there is a place called Center of Sustainability Studies. So whenever you're interested with working on like sustainability, you get a lot of resources and you can reach a really large network on like similar topics.
Brilliant. How about you, Emma?
Yeah, I recently write a blog about having a pass or fail grading system in the School of Design. And I think for me, it's the grading system that I really enjoyed here. There is no like A, B, C scale competition here. It's just either pass or fail. And yeah, somehow that takes away the competing vibe between the students, and it's more collaborative. And yeah, it takes this pressure away from you, like to to impress the teachers, or so that gives you the freedom, and I really like that.
Yeah, that's really cool. I actually also studied here at Lund, and I come from the UK, which is a very like grade focused pressure kind of academic environment compared to Sweden. And I totally agree. It was such a breath of fresh air to have like yeah, just pass fail. And I think that it focuses much more on the process of learning rather than the end result, which is a change, but also very, like you said, it does really take off the pressure. And that was also a theme in the session earlier today with the program stuff also. So that's great. And finally, Razi?
Yes, I think, no, because this is my first semester, so I won't have a lot to say compared to the others. I will support Emaliv's point on the grades, as well as the level of creative ability that we could input into the program, especially digital architecture, coming from, I guess, a different curriculum or different educational structure. And I could also support that the level of like a lower stress level compared to workload and school life balance.
Great, thank you. We have our first question. So we actually have a question here around scholarship. Now, of course, I guess this is not so much like a program specific question necessarily, but I do know that one of our attendees here today, Ati, got the Ingvar Kamprad scholarship. Is that correct? So maybe you want to share a little bit about how the process is for applying for that scholarship, because that is a program specific scholarship that we offer.
So the process was pretty straightforward. For the application, we had to submit a motivation letter and portfolio. And while submitting, so there is an option in Lucid website, our industrial design website, where you just get to say, hey, consider me for the scholarship, and you just tick that, write your email and send it. And it's pretty straightforward as that. You don't need to do anything extra. Oh, sorry, I said the wrong thing. It's not in Lucid website. It's in the, maybe I can just send the link in the chat.
Yeah,
so
sure.
I don't give wrong information.
Yeah, totally.
And then I also have the living stipend scholarship. And so that is a bit different. For that, you need to go to the website and then write a very short motivation saying why you deserve the scholarship. So this living stipend scholarship is open to everyone, including the Swedish students, European students, and international students. Whereas the portfolio is only for the tuition fee. So it's two different kind of scholarships. So I will just find that link and send it in the chat if anyone is interested.
Thank you so much. And then I think we also have someone who's on the Lund University Global Scholarship. Is that right? Who was that? Sorry, I forgot already. It's you, Gizem. Okay, would you like to speak a little about the Lund University Global Scholarship? We won't spend too long on this because it's more general, but...
Yeah. So shortly, in my case, it was mostly about the motivational letter and the portfolio. So how to get it is really, I mean, it's really difficult to answer, but I can only suggest that like whenever you prepare your portfolio or write your motivation letter, you just try to like be yourself, and you just try to mention how this program is specifically important for you and what are your dreams with. So yeah, I just tried something like this and it worked in my case.
That's a great tip, and I think it also applies more generally also like for all of the programs that we have represented today, that the staff also want to know what your motivation is and why you relate to this particular program, to make sure that it's the right fit for you. So that's also good in general as well. And I also shared here, you can see in the chat here, I think I have to share your link, Arti, because it's shared with only hosts, so I can share this here, or maybe you can change it to everyone. I don't know if you have the permissions for this, but I can.
I don't
No,
have the
that's
permission
fine.
for everyone.
I will share this in the link as well. And I'm just writing Ingvar Kamprad, like making sure I can write it. Okay, for anybody who doesn't know, that's the guy who founded IKEA, correct? So he's like a famous Swedish figure. So I'll just share that here. Yeah, perfect. And then I'll also share this other link that you sent here. So that's a couple of bits of information around scholarships, and you'll also see that I sent a general link above, which gives you not only the link towards the Lund University Global Scholarship, but also there is a page there for any external scholarships that you can investigate. And just in general, I would advise to have a look into lots of different options when it comes to funding, because that's very important. But I won't go into any more detail today about scholarships. We'll focus on the information to do with the programs instead. So we have a question here, actually for Arti again. Could you explain further your transition from architecture to sustainable urban design? And additionally, how much is the interaction between the departments? And I think perhaps some of the rest of you can also speak a little on your background and what background you came from, and this question on how far the departments interact, but we can take those two as separate questions. So firstly, about the transition from architecture to sustainable urban design.
I don't study sustainable urban design.
I'm sorry. Yeah, of course. I also
Did they mean design?
No, yeah, I wonder whether the person who asked that question misread the industrial design, as I did just now, or whether they mean to address Gizem with the question here about their background. So perhaps instead we can just go a little around and talk about what background you come from, and what you have brought in terms of your previous studies to this. So we can still start with Arti, and you can talk about that transition.
So like in architecture, it is about designing for people, but like through space, through spatial design. But in industrial design, it is like it's very in a smaller scale. So I still enjoy it because at the end of the day, we are designing for people. Okay, there's a question here. It's a hard one to do.
Yes, a similar one as well. Sorry, I can return that too.
I had difficulty in terms of like the technical knowledge the bachelor industrial design students gain. I did not have that in terms of working in smaller detail and the using machines, because the students here were proficient in using the machines and everything, and I did not know how to do that. I did not know about different kinds of technique used to produce things like sandcasting, lathe. So I was unfamiliar with things like that, but I have managed to bridge that gap. And even when it comes to using softwares, like using Rhino for architecture is slightly different than using Rhino for industrial design, because the components you design is slightly different. And so in my portfolio, I did not have any purely industrial design work. I just submitted my architecture work and some of the furniture design I did. So I think at the end of the day, they really look at it. Okay, I cannot speak for them, but when I made my portfolio, I just tried to show my creative side, that I can solve problems, even though I do not have industrial design projects. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And yeah, I'm like also a little bit curious about what motivated you to actually make that switch. I wonder if I can add that on before we move on to the other panelists.
So coming from Nepal, like there is a lot of manufacturing lacking. And when I would be traveling, like I realized I did not know how things were made, what is the material. So I really wanted to bridge that gap in myself. And when I was looking into programs back home, I just came across some project, and later I realized these projects were made by students in Lund University, and that's how it came into my radar. So I wasn't looking for Lund, but I just came across the project and I thought, oh, that is pretty cool. And I met that student. He's my classmate right now, so it all came full circle for me.
Oh, wow, that's really cool. Okay, that's nice. I always like to ask that question because I think it's very interesting and also something for those attending to reflect on as well about why it is that you're interested in these programs so that you can reflect that when you apply. Okay, so Gizem, I guess it may have been a bit directed to you, I'm not sure, but what kind of background did you come to your program with? Was it in a related, exactly the same field or slightly different?
So I will try to answer shortly. But yeah, so Sustainable Urban Design Program in Lund University, it's under Faculty of Architecture still. And my bachelor's degree was from architecture. So in this case, it's still like a little bit, I would say, smoother transition. I think artists is a little bit like more transition. So mine was just like, I wanted to work in a little bit larger scale for my master degree. And urban design is a little bit like city planning, urban planning skill rather than architecture. So that's why I was really interested in doing my last year of my bachelor. During the architectural competitions, I really enjoyed it. And then when I was searching the master programs, I specifically wanted to look at for something called urban design. And also I was interested in sustainability. And what was the best thing that I found about this program, like they had their course booklets from student projects for our program. So I can send the link. So what I did is like I basically went through these design booklets done by student projects. I was looking at them. I had a chance to understand what scale they work on this program and what kind of like project sites they had. So I was really like personally interested in this program. So I prioritized to apply for this one. I can send the link and you can go through the student projects because I think it says a lot.
Yeah, thank you. I would love to share that. Thank you. Okay, Emila, would you like to share what kind of background you came to the program with and perhaps something about your portfolio?
Yeah, so my background is in architecture. I had 5.5 years of bachelor's degree in Ethiopia in Addis Ababa University. It was more, we were everywhere in this 5.5 years. We touched a lot of aspects of design and architecture. And then after I graduate, I worked for a few years in a real estate company which has a research department. And we were working in doing like rural housing typologies. So I got a chance to go to the rural parts of Ethiopia and explore things. So like the more I know about architecture, the more I want to explore both sustainability, artistic expression. And I found out like I'm really passionate about the subject that I studied. So I actually applied to architecture in Lund. So for me, there's no transition, basically. It's just doing something more advanced research. And in Lund, it's what I enjoyed most is it's more research-based kind of education. So we had a chance to slowly research what we do compared to my previous bachelor's program, which was like very intense design thing. The other thing is we got the chance to take different studios. For example, currently I'm taking a course from the Digital Architecture and Emergence Futures with Razi. we're studio mates, and we're exploring how to, digitally or generate more computer architecture kind of thing. So yeah, I'm adding knowledge or like understanding in architecture. Yeah.
Brilliant. That's really cool. And Razi, did you come to this from?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I guess I could answer this like in this question in reverse, because my background is in urban design,
Okay.
and I came into more architecture focus. So digital architecture and emergent future is more architecture-y than urban design. And I actually had a conversation with like the staff beforehand in terms of, will I survive in this course coming from a urban design background? At first I was hesitant, but then they're like, it's not too much focus in architecture. It's more experimental. And especially within the course with Imalef, we got to explore like different tools in which they use. And that's where like the digital architecture comes in, or like the parametric and generated algorithms and such. As far as my application, so my portfolio based on like, I had like various different works, such as it was more heavily focused in urban design, but I was fortunate enough to have collaborated with the architecture students within my school, which I forgot to mention is Carleton University in Ottawa, Canada. Otherwise, the current course with spatial experiments, it's very research focused with the aid of digital tools. It's fun. Very
cool. Okay, great. And it sounds from that then that there is an element, because that was the second question, was around the sort of interdisciplinary or cross-course, I guess you could say, interaction. And it sounds like there is quite a lot of interaction in between your programs. Would anyone like to add something about that? Like, yeah, Gizem, would you like to say something?
Oh yeah, I just remembered that last semester I saw classmates with
yeah.
actual sample landscape course. So I was just gonna say, it seems like there are different programs, but we can actually meet when we take elective courses. So there are like usually a few options, and architecture students and urban design or digital architecture students choose kind of like in between. So we somehow meet still. And for industrial design, it seems like a little bit like different, but still it's still part of the faculty. So we have common workshops open for all students. We have like invited speakers, so we can always like come together and work together because it's still part of the same faculty.
That sounds great. And I guess that means, again, there's quite a lot of freedom in being able to choose what you specialize in. And you mentioned electives there, so you can choose different electives depending on your specific interests and where you want to go in the future, I guess. Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, so we have more questions here coming in fast, so I better have a look at these. Okay, so there's a question about the architecture design studios, which I guess you all use, but there's a question of what are the design approaches used in your projects, and how is feedback given for students' work by staff? Is it in the form of sketches, verbal comments, or written notes? I guess this varies, but maybe we can address, because we have quite a few questions now, maybe we'll just address these to different members of our panel today. So Arti, I'll ask you about your, maybe architecture design studios. Who amongst you would like to answer this? Because I don't know who is the most active in this area, like in terms of design approaches in the architecture design studios. Anyone want to put up a hand? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned earlier, it's a more research-based kind of approach. So the first months or the first couple of weeks are spent more on researches, doing case studies. For example, if we are designing affordable housing, we do research in defining affordability. So it's more of not architecture, but somehow just dissect each and everything about the programs that we do. Yeah, and then there are a couple of presentations before jumping into the design. So usually it's teamwork in the first weeks, or maybe it could be a teamwork until the last outcome. Yeah. So when it comes to feedbacks, tutorials are available throughout the weeks, usually maybe once or twice a week. It depends when it's at the end of the semester, it might not be that available because they want us to work more. So yeah, feedback is usually sketching. Yeah, the teachers are more interactive, I would say, and they're very approachable. Sometimes we text them and they just show up in our studios with a tracing paper and to show us what we do. But I think each studio has a different approach. There are more interactive teachers, and there are teachers who want to give you more freedom. So it actually could depend in the studio too.
Yeah, that makes sense. Is that the same for the rest of you? You have a similar experience? Yeah, great. Okay. So now we have a question. All of you mentioned before that you studied in other universities in different countries. So how do you find the experience in Lund University with a different study background? Is there something different about for example, the learning experience, the teaching, that you really notice between your previous studies and Lund University? There's a question in with this about evaluation or tests. So I guess you can answer either. You can talk about the difference when it comes to general learning experience or perhaps with evaluation also. I think we can maybe go to Razi and ask you your opinion on this. Is there something you notice different between Canada and here?
Oh, yes, definitely. From like the grading systems compared to Canada, based on like a lettering system or a percentage system compared to pass or fail in Lund. You see a drastic difference in terms of work ethic, along with like the teachers do help with like evaluations or like project help. And then this is where like the whole like stress, the stress environment comes from. Because what the teachers say here is like, as long as you do the work, and they see your work, you would pass. Whereas in Canada, I would say like with the grading system, it's like you don't know how far, like what's good compared to what's bad, and how good the design could come in terms to achieve a higher grade.
Right. Emalas? I'm sorry, I think I said your name three different ways now. I apologize. But what have you noticed that is different from your previous studies and now?
I think Razi kind of mentioned the general idea.
Yeah.
Usually architecture is a very intense deadline-oriented discipline. So when it comes to schools, it's the juries or the creeds are very intense, and teachers sometimes they become, their feedback is sometimes it could be discouraging, or it could get something like personal. But here your teachers are more of they have a friendly kind of approach to giving feedbacks. It's more of like encouraging you to be improved as a designer, rather than just pushing you in a certain kind of direction that they want. And yeah, it makes it less stressful. So I would agree with Razi.
Great. Gizem, what have you noticed?
I would say it's quite similar. My experience is quite similar to like both of them. It's quite different from Turkey. Like, of course, when you have a grading system and when you have pass and fail, it affects everything. And you just like, when you think that you have a freedom, you can like think more about the design itself, and you can think about more like improving it in yourself. So yeah, in short, I would say this is the most effective way.
Do you feel like it makes you take like more risks because you know that it's just as simple as pass fail, or?
I think when you know that it's just pass or fail, you can basically like personalize your design, and you can trust yourself more, and then the teaching staff is just there to improve it or support your own journey on the project. It's not more like, okay, I need to do this because my lecturer wants me to do this. So there's a quite like big difference if you're leading the project or if you're just going to a way that you were being asked.
Yeah, definitely. And Arti, what do you think is the most different?
I also agree with everything that they said. But to add on to that, maybe it was because of the study environment back home, the competition. Maybe there was also some Asian culture aspect there, but I found that even my classmates here, I like the aura of competitiveness I found in my classmates back home, and here the competition doesn't exist. Like I can be friends with my classmates. I don't get that competitive vibe from everyone. It's more like you do good, I will also do good. I don't know what's the experience is like for other people, but me coming from an Asian background, I did not feel that cutthroat competition. And the teachers here are also much more chilled, laid back, and yeah, not having pass and fail, that definitely does make a lot of difference. So for me, that lack of competition among the students was a very vast difference.
That's really cool. I think it's something that we mentioned sometimes is around Sweden encouraging things like group work, and the way that they in general, in a broader sense, we like to have students get to know each other and work with each other and find out more about their strengths and your own strengths and your own weaknesses, for example. So it sounds like all of you have had a very supportive experience, both with fellow students and staff, which is really great to hear as well. Okay, we will ask another couple of questions now. So we have a question, and this is specifically around digital architecture. So I'll aim this one to you, Razi, around job opportunities available for graduates. Now, of course, I know you're not graduated yet from your master's, so I don't know if you can really talk a little about perhaps how you are being prepared for future work, or what your future goals might be.
Yeah, so I guess I mean, digital architecture and Emergent features like it's kind of like a new field, whereas like there are more jobs opening up or more career titles in terms of like digital architecture opening up. As far as like in terms of like schoolwork and preparation, yes, I definitely agree with that. In terms of like something that we know, like architecture technologists, and in terms of their graphics knowledge and software, and it's mostly software orientated in terms of when you look at digital architecture, because there are job titles like computation architect, computation specialist, and like bigger architecture firms. And there are some job opportunities in like R&D, research and development, with the companies. But there are more and more opportunities opening up, as this is like a very new field of, I guess, architecture.
Brilliant, thank you. And I guess while we're talking about future plans, I will actually open that up to the rest of you and ask you a little bit about whether you have any specific goals for after your studies, or what you would like to do, and again, how you feel that your program is preparing you for after your studies, or maybe it's not, but just like what you see in your current studies as interesting for the future, perhaps. So if I go back around, so if I go to Arti and then Isam and then Amalef.
So regarding future opportunities, like I get regular emails from my department regarding a lot of internship opportunities. And since the school is funded by IKEA, I see like internship opportunities for internship in IKEA. So they do have connections that way. The school tries to connect students when opportunities like that arise. But with that being said, I don't want to give a wrong idea that the school will try to connect you with internships themselves, like for summer. Don't get that idea, but it's just that if they hear of something, they will just send it.
Yeah, you still have to find, generally speaking, you still have to also use your own initiative, right, to find opportunities. Yeah.
But another thing that is beneficial here is that Lund University goes to all the design fairs around the world, like Stockholm, Milan, Dutch Design Week. So they give you a platform to just be out there. So it's up to you to network with other people.
Cool, great. Thank you, Sam.
I definitely agree with the first comments. I also wouldn't say that it directly connects you to someone or somewhere, but if you are looking for opportunities and advantages, I think you might find a lot of them. For example, in my program, we still have mid-field presentation and final presentation. So different juries from different architectural companies are coming to be commenting about our project. So you always have a chance to connect with them, ask questions about their work environment, their company. Mostly they spend the whole day when you're making your final presentations for it. So you get chance to know them better, know the company better. And also we are having different workshops, also people from coming different countries, or sometimes students are going because our project site is somewhere else outside of Sweden, for example. So there are a lot of opportunities that you can take it and try to connect more people, or try to decide what kind of environment you want to work. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And then finally,
I think they covered it, especially Gizem. She covered it, most of it. Usually there are invited guest lecturers or guest creeds who you could get a chance to show your designs and your projects. But most of the things, it depends on individual effort too. Personally, for example, you could just email your portfolio to offices in different places in Sweden or in Denmark, and boldly ask for an opportunity. I know few of my students who just go and ask it for an opportunity, and who managed to have one. Yeah, I recently emailed a few offices for a research thesis idea for next semester, and surprisingly, some of them were interested, which I didn't expect. So I think rather than waiting for the university to provide almost all the opportunities, it's good to boldly ask because going to Lund University by itself is a good name, and it could get you somewhere else, I guess. Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah, I think that's good for people to know as well, that there is weight to the name of the university in Sweden and even beyond. So that's great. Thank you. Here is a question specifically addressed to Gizem. It says, what is the ratio of students to staff on your program, and how much is the interaction despite the freedom of the students that we talked about? So how much actual contact time do you get with the staff? There's also a sub question about the practicalities of the course about sustainability, but perhaps we can leave that aside a little and just focus first on the ratio from students to staff.
Mm-hmm. So my program is like, we're 25 students, and we have 4 regular lectures, and then we have invited lecturers from other companies or from other universities, and we also have like other lectures from other departments, like from architecture or digital architecture. So they're always like in contact. And the interaction is like a good question, because we say like we will have the freedom, but how much free we will be, because you still need some support when you're designing. Things get complicated and you can actually get lost. So I would say we have a quite large time, because we are not super crowded. When I was doing my bachelor, we were 120 students, and now it's like 6 times less. And we have weekly tutorials up to 30 minutes individually when you're working on your own design. So I think it's quite a lot of time that you can like discuss with the lecturer, and then you spend most of your time in the studio with students from different backgrounds, from different countries. So you can always like improve your like each other's design as well. So yeah.
So you learn a lot from your fellow students as well as
Yes.
the time with staff. Okay. And would the others agree? Is there anything different for any of you, or something? Or is it all sound similar for you guys?
I would say, I would say that like in terms of ratio, I guess compared to the other disciplines, so we have a smaller, student to, I guess, the same to like student to teacher ratio. As far as now, we have 4 individuals, including me in my program, and then the similar number in terms of staff. So it's a pretty close-knit, tight.
Yeah, you must really get to know your other students if there's
well.
just a few of you.
Yes.
Okay, that's really good to know. Okay, so yeah, there was this question about a little bit about the practical course, especially about sustainability, but I don't really know exactly what that means. Perhaps the person who asked that could just explain to me a little bit more what you're asking there, and we can come back to you in a moment. We also have a question here for let's see, Arti. So I think perhaps you answered this a little already, but the question is, they don't have a bachelor's in industrial design too. What was the biggest academic challenge you found? I think you did mention earlier that you found it a bit difficult with some of the practical applications of some of the tools. And there was also a question, do you have classmates that studied mechanical engineering by any chance? So I don't know, maybe you...
So not having an industrial design bachelor's, I don't think it's a problem, because currently in my class, I have someone who came from fashion design. So that is as far not connected subject. And I do have 2 classmates who studied engineering. But one of the students also did bachelor's. I think mechanical engineering is actually an asset in industrial design, because when it comes to technical design of products, I think it actually comes in handy. So mechanical engineering is, I think, a good thing that you have in your background.
Okay, cool. And of course, we can also encourage everybody attending to look at the program pages as well, and ask questions to the staff if you have some questions that are like, yeah, more technical, because of course we can only tell a little bit about what we see. Like you guys can say what kind of backgrounds you see, but ultimately the decision is always made by the admissions officer, so we can't give like clear guidance about this, but it's good to know that there's some people with similar backgrounds with engineering. Okay, we have a question here around sustainable urban design, so it's for Gizem again. It says, if sustainable urban design comes in the urban context of Sweden, or is there a chance to do it with regional context, or could you design something to do with your own region? So basically, like, where do you focus your sustainable urban design? Is it only around the urban context of Sweden, or can you also go beyond that?
So this is also a really nice question. So I will say for the first year, we have 2 courses, and one of them you start focusing on the urban design within the Swedish context. So we had a project site within Sweden, but we also had like case studies where we looked at like different countries, because all of us are coming from different countries and we can learn from each other. So we also had presentations about our own country, and we discussed like sustainability issues in our local perspective as well. And then the second year, first semester, you have a like regional focus, that you have the project site outside of Sweden. So now we have a project site in Prague. So it's like outside, so we are still like working on sustainability. So we are mostly focusing on the global perspective. And for the thesis, it's completely up to you. I mean, in our case, it was up to us. So we could have, like, we can choose our hometown or our own country, or you can choose either Sweden or somewhere else. So it's up to you, but you always discuss with the supervisor and the examiner. But yeah, you have freedom when you're moving to your thesis, I would say.
Okay, and now we have a clarification of the previous question also about what was meant when it was referring to practical experience here, and the idea of sustainability. So somebody has asked, do you do field work or on-site solutions in terms of what you're working on, or do you pick an area or region design with the aim of improving it? And I guess you just talked a little about the different kind of levels of focus that you have, but it sounds to me like you do practical field work.
Yeah, I would say we do both. It just matters like which semester you're in. So you start mostly like from Sweden, and for the places that you can actually be there and try to like see the real reflections, but then you can have another project sites as well. Like for so many years it was like this, so you always have both. Try to balance it depending on which semester you are.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a question from Malash. Sorry. Can you say how is your experience as a non-Swedish person coming from a different continent is the question. Is there something like a support team? I guess this is relevant for all of you anyway, because you all come from a different country other than Sweden. So I can also ask you all to chime in on this after, but this was directed initially to you. But there's a question, is there something like a support team, and how do you find the interaction with different students, I guess from different backgrounds to your own? So what do you have to say about that? And then maybe we can ask the others if they have something to add as well.
I haven't gone to a support team or something, but Lund generally is a very international university. So somehow you'll find your way into your type of people. Of course, coming to a new country from a very different background, I don't think it would be that easy for anyone actually. But it takes time, I guess, and you'll find your type of people, your own circle. But for me personally, this is a personal answer. I have a brother here, apparently. So it was very easy to navigate around for me. It's just I'll just call him whenever I need something.
Oh, that's cool. That's nice.
But-
Nice when you have
yeah.
a link.
But it's good to have friends or mentors. For example, I know there are different mentor groups personally. So and also talk to the people in Unibuddy before you can, they're very helpful. I helped Razi, I guess, before.
Yeah, did you speak to each other before you arrived? Oh, that's really cool.
We actually become friends after talking on Unibuddy. Yeah,
that's really cool. So yeah, that is a good point of support. I will just mention that, and I can maybe even share the link as well while one of our other panelists answers as well, because it is a really nice thing that we can offer, is to speak to other students just like this. And I will put the link in the chat, and then maybe I will ask Razi, how did you find moving to another country? And yeah, was there any issues with that you found, or any support you had?
Yeah, I guess before I continue, yeah, I annoyed Amalef a lot. I asked him so many questions. Otherwise, coming across the ocean from the other side of the world, it wasn't, I guess it wasn't that new to me. I guess in terms of like the climate and the environment, it's sort of similar. And maybe the culture in some ways. Otherwise, in terms of support groups, the mentor groups really help a lot. The international mentor groups, where you find a lot of people from other parts of the world coming together and participating in a lot of events, getting to know each other helps a lot, and you can probably make lifelong connections through that. Friends that you have throughout the semester are just a person to talk to when it comes to until it gets into the Swedish winters.
Oh yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I also personally found the first winter a little bit tough when I moved here, but after that, when it came around to the spring and the summer, I was just like, okay, now we're good, now we're okay. So I actually think that maybe I should move to another question already, because there's so many now just at the last few minutes of this event. So I'm sorry, Atiyengiz, that you can't answer that one, but we'll move to another question quickly. So there's a question here about traineeships, and is it hard to find a good traineeship in Sweden for an architecture student from another country? Now, I guess I don't really know what we would consider the difference between a traineeship and something like an internship, for example, because we're more used to using the term internship here, I would say. But like, I guess we kind of started to talk about this a little already, because we said that you need to use your own initiative sometime. But I would like to ask Gizem, because you actually work with a voluntary group that supports other students to find internships. So perhaps you can answer this question about whether it's hard to find a traineeship or an internship.
So if you're looking an internship like within Sweden, I want to suggest something that you can learn Swedish as soon as possible. Like, you can start learning it. Of course, it's a long process, but you will need it in the end if you're looking for something long term. So if you know Swedish, that's something plus. And if you don't know, there are still opportunities, but you need to look for it. Or I'm volunteering in a student organization called ASP Lund. So if you come to Lund University, there are students basically looking for internships to help other LTH students. And whenever we find something, we just post it online. So you can always apply for it. It's open, sometimes it's open to like just Lund University students, because the agreement is like that. So you have so many opportunities, but you need to push things a little bit harder by yourself as well, I would say.
Cool. We have a question here about how is the program post or during COVID as well, which is an interesting one. Of course, we're recording this session, so perhaps someone will watch this later and this is not so relevant to them now. But I would like to say, like, from my perspective as well, living here in Sweden, that now everything is back on campus, and it to me doesn't feel like there is any difference now from before, other than that there is a little bit more emphasis on also offering some digital events or recording and things like this, because that has become more of a way of life now. But what does anyone want to add to that? From your experience, have you noticed anything different? Perhaps those who've been here for more than a couple of semesters might notice that there was a difference last year and this year, for example. Yeah, Arti, would you like to speak?
So when I first came here in 2021, the COVID precaution that they took was they assigned people days for the studio. Like I could come on Monday and other people will come on Tuesday, and then I come on Wednesday. So they tried to keep some degree of separation. And I have noticed that the Swedish people in themselves, even though there are not strict rules, if they are sick, they choose to not come back and affect other people. So they take their own responsibility. And this is where the teachers in the university also encourage you to not come to school if you are sick. So they don't punish you for that. So that is my experience with COVID. But as Rebecca mentioned, life is back to normal and I have forgotten about COVID.
Yeah, I also noticed some of those changes as well, even in a work environment, that people are very cautious about coming in if they're not feeling 100% as well. So I would definitely agree with that in general in society in Sweden. Okay, we have one more question in the Q&A now, and we have just a couple of minutes left. This question is for Arti, and then I will ask for everybody like to finish on a sum up of something that they would like to share about their program, or something that they think everybody should know before they come to study your program. So I will start with this question for Arti, about mentioning a couple of projects that you worked on for industrial design, first of all.
So for the first semester, we had a very fixed brief about what we needed to design for. So I had a sewing project. And then for the second semester, we were given several options, like you could design something for Milan Furniture Fair, or you could do a solar project, or you could build a shelter for IKEA, or you could do whatever you wanted. And me coming from architecture background, I decided to work on the shelter project for IKEA. It was a group project. And so it was built and presented in Helsingborg for about 5 weeks. And all of these projects can be seen in the Lucid website. And now, and this for this third semester, we have a collaboration with NASA. I am not doing something for space. I am just doing something for the homeless. And this comes to the part I mentioned in the beginning, that we get a lot of freedom in deciding what we want to do.
Brilliant. Thank you for just doing that. And then I will go around and I would basically like to ask you for your final advice or tip, something that somebody watching this webinar should know about your program or coming to Lund. So it's quite big, but let's go around. So let's start with Razi.
Yes, I guess one of the reasons I chose this program is like, especially in digital computation and digital architecture, because not a lot of like programs around the world offer such specialty. And it's actually, this program itself, it's in its first year of implementation, so it's kind of a new program. But the program itself uses like a lot of computational elements, softwares. So not necessarily you need to know the software when coming in. You will learn it as like the course as within the project itself. Like softwares which in for example, in Grasshopper, and Rhino, and sort of like more plugins associated with that. Otherwise, in terms of like its like methodology. It's very new. I can sort of like in terms of research and project ideas, it probably might be very unconventional, but like it's very research focused, which is something new for me and for others who take this who have taken courses within this program.
Okay. And Amala?
Yeah. I think why they should apply to Lund University architecture program could be for me, or why I applied is it has like the right kind of balance between the theoretical aspect of architecture and the practical aspect of architecture. So if they're looking for something to develop theoretically and practically, it should be a good option. So usually we have a design course, a main design course, and a theoretical course that supports the main design course. And then another more architecture related course, for example. If we are doing the advanced architectural design, we'd have like a theory for advanced architectural design course, another course, and then an integrated structural course, for example. So that for me was a very good thing, because I'm still want to explore the creative side of architecture. So that's why I want the theoretical part. I know there are some schools that are pretty much hardcore architecture and construction schools, but this is somehow, yeah, what I go for. And something that they should know before they come here is they should be more open to group work, I guess. I've seen some students struggle with it, so be more compromising. Yeah, try to be open and listen to other people's ideas. That would make their life very easy, I guess. So,
Yeah, that's a great tip. I also felt a bit nervous about group work before I started, and then in the end it was one of the best parts of what we were doing, because it really lets you get to know people. So that's really cool.
It kind of changed my idea about group works too. It depends as who ended up in your group, but somehow I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Okay, Gizem, so like, yeah, one thing you want them to know, basically.
Yeah, I talked a lot of things about my program, but I want general advice. So before you come here, I would say you should use Unibody as much as you can, because in my case also, like the ambassador, she got graduated now, but she's one of my best friends recently in Lund. So yeah, I was really appreciated, and I also asked so many questions. We are just there to like help and try to make things a little bit clarified as much as we can. And then as the last thing I would say, because we are studying architecture or like something related to design, we tend to spend so much time on these things. But I would say take like professional networking seriously, because you never know like what it will bring to you in a long term. So I would say invest on your personal relationships as well.
Great tip, thank you. And then finally, Arti, what's one thing you would like everybody to know?
I would like to follow up on Gizem's advice on using Unibody and getting as much information, because my first day here wasn't very pleasant, and I could have avoided problems if I had done my homework a bit. And so even when I'm talking to people in Unibody, they are always very hesitant about keeping up with work, or questions about not being selected. So I think the education here is structured in such a way that you can catch up. They have a very nice work-life balance here. And so I think you can keep up. I haven't, even though I was lacking in certain areas, it was very easy for me to catch up. So I just want to say all the doubts you have right now, when you come here, you will realize the amount of support you have and you will manage to keep up.
That's such an encouraging note to end this session on. Thank you very much, all of you. I'm really glad that all of you are having such a positive experience, and thank you for your time today, coming and sharing your experience with our prospective students. Thank you for everybody who has attended as well watching this presentation today. As I mentioned at the start, we are recording this and we will send it out to everybody who's attending, and also anyone who signed up but couldn't attend. So you'll be able to watch this later if there's something that you forgot or that you need to ask. And also you're always welcome to contact us, or as I mentioned, to contact the Unibuddy team. The link is in the chat already. And then I'm also going to share here a contact form for if you have any questions where you would like to ask us as staff from the marketing team, a question maybe to do with eligibility or the application, something more general. We would be very happy to help you as well. So I really hope that you got some good information today. I think it was really interesting and nice to hear from all of our panelists, and I hope that that has been helpful. We really hope that we're going to see some of you next year or maybe in the future, and good luck with your application, and keep in touch. Thank you again, everybody, panelists and our participants, and I'll see you all soon. Goodbye.